The Jimmy Johnson, the 7-time champion, will not be making it to the round of 12. Okay. That was unbelievable. That was way more than I expected. Easily one of the greatest races of the year, and really high up there. Got some top tier NASCAR memes out of this race. I really don't have many words. This is going to be a short review of this race. The Bank of America Roval 400, the inaugural Roval 400. Ryan Blaney gets his first win of the year. I'm very proud of Team Penske and Ryan Blaney in that number 12 Menards Pennzoil combo. Able to pull out the win today, but really just a lot of drama going on where his win was kind of overshadowed by bigger losses going on. Mainly, I think we all know who I'm talking about, Jimmy Johnson and the last lap. And this wasn't the case in the beginning, in the middle of this race. Jimmy was actually doing pretty well for himself. He was above the cut line. He was doing everything right, not perfect, but right, and he was keeping himself with enough. He was keeping himself way above water, long enough that if he had a steady finish, he was going to make it to the round of 12 coming to Dover. But when you're the kind of competitor that has 7 championships in your career, I can only imagine how hard it is when you're that close. He was setting it up. Jimmy Johnson was setting it up, coming off of Old Charlotte 3 and 4 to be one of the closest and wildest finishes that we've seen in a long time. But it simply wasn't the case. It was a very conflicting finish because Truex fans have every right to be mad, and Truex himself has every right to be frustrated. But on the same side, Jimmy Johnson has just enough right to be upset that he wasn't able to make the pass. So really nobody was at fault there. He was just racing to the end, really racing for the win, and Jimmy didn't really have the bigger picture in mind, I'm sure, in that situation. But let's be real. They haven't really. The 48 has not really been performing at all like they have been all these years since this year. And so if they somehow did make it to the round of 12, it probably would have been the last round they would have made it to. I don't think they would have advanced to the round of 8. There's far too many other better drivers and better teams in the playoff mix that would have made it in his spot to the round of 8 had he advanced. But it is really heartbreaking for the 48 team because this win would have snapped the 51 winless streak. And it possibly if they don't have a sponsor ready set up for 2019. As you know, Lowe's is leaving the 48 team sponsorship role, and this would have been a really good interview for a new sponsor to jump on if they haven't found one already. And now it's kind of put a damper on getting a good sponsorship deal. And also on snapping that winless streak. This might have been his best chance this season. Some other busts. Now, Jimmy Johnson, I think, was, to me, the most heartbreaking to miss the cutoff line for the playoffs after this race. Next below him, people who are joining Jimmy Johnson that didn't make the round of 12 are Denny Hamlin and Eric Jones, both Joe Gibbs Toyotas, and both really got into each other during this race, and in my opinion, put each other out of advancing. Denny Hamlin was already well into the rabbit hole before even coming to Charlotte. He was already, him and Jones both were in a must-win situation coming into this weekend. Both of them didn't perform as well as they needed to, and that's the reason they're in that position. Austin Dillon from the Richard Childress camp in the number 3, Pop's boy, didn't make it to the round of 12. And I was really shocked whenever he even made it to the round of 16. To be honest, the only win to his name this year was the Daytona 500, and if you ask me, that was by a dump move. And sorry if I'm being harsh here. It's just some people I don't like on the track. I was surprised when he made it to the round of 16, and if he was somehow able to make it to the round of 12 without any wins, I really was going to think there's something wrong with this playoff format. If somebody like Austin Dillon can make it to the round of 12 or the round of 8 or something like that. If somebody like that can win the championship, there's something wrong with the point system. So I'm glad that scenario did not ensue. So the real surprises, less than the Jimmy Johnson story for me, but the fact that people like Kyle Larson and Eric Almirola and Alex Bowman were not so sure if during this race they were going up and down, up and below the bubble of who was going to make it to the round of 12 or not. And Kyle Larson really just was literally limping to the end of the race during that chaotic restart that we knew what was going to happen. After, dang it, Stenhouse had some trouble spinning multiple times during this race, and the final time he spun finally sent him to the garage where he needed to be the first or second time. This would have been Kyle Larson's race to win had not that issue happened. And coming to that restart, they all piled into the Tums heartburn turn one, and that got some of the best reactions on Twitter from some fans that were a group of fans that were in the box seats. I really want to put it on this video if I can find it. They just had the best reaction. You saw me if you follow me on Twitter, which you should. They retweeted that, and it was hilarious. Like that's what I meant about the NASCAR memes from this race. Anyway, that turn one accident that brought the caution again really screwed up Kyle Larson's right front, I believe, and he had to go back in, and it was all tattered up, and the camber on his wheel, whenever they put it back on, he really only had about 2 or 3 inches of his tire remaining on the track surface on that right front whenever they said you just need to limp it to the finish and see what we can get. And he was lucky enough that Jeffrey Earnhardt spun on the front stretch after that front stretch chicane. He was able to pass him while he was standing idle. Had to bump the walls in the process because of how damaged his car was. But yeah, Kyle Larson able to make the cut. Eric Almirola also able to make the cut despite many scrapes on the wall and a lot of bad luck. If there was a bad situation in this race, he was there, and he really had luck on his side today because he was really one of those drivers that was looking like he was going to be out of the picture, and somehow he was able to stay in, and good for him. I'm glad Eric Almirola's able to move to the round of 12. This has already been his best season ever, and it would be really awesome if we could get the number 10 to the round of 8. Alex Bowman, a lot of people thought Alex Bowman wasn't going to make it to the round of 12. They thought it was like a sure bet that the 88 would not, in his first full-time year in the 88 for Hendrick Motorsports, would not make it to the round of 12. He ends up defying the odds despite being on that bubble all race long, and makes it to the round of 12. Really proud of that organization. And now we can finally talk about the winner of the race, which usually is the highlight of the race. Today it was not so. There's just way too much to talk about today. Ryan Blaney gets his first win of the season. His last win was last year at Pocono, driving for the Wood Brothers. I don't know if you can see my shirt. So he finally gets to put himself in the win column, driving in the number 12. And it's long overdue. He should be having a lot more by now, but I'm glad he gets a win in the playoffs and secures himself into the round of 12. I hope he can go a long way. And also, if you'll remember, Clint Boyer is also advancing, and one of my preseason predictions was that Clint Boyer was going to make it to the round of 8. Guys, he made it to the round of 12. It's looking even better, although I really have already screwed up on a bunch of my preseason predictions. But that one's still holding strong, and if he can make it to the round of 8, I will have one in the box. Yeah, back to Jimmie Johnson, though. This is big because he hasn't... I know the championship and playoff whatever format has changed a few times over the years, but he has not missed this opportunity since 2002. If he can't get a win this year, he hasn't gone a season without a win since 2002. So really, if this is the low point of his career, I hope it's the lowest it's going to get, because if it goes another year like this, this is usually where somebody of his age would say that they're hanging the towel and moving on. I certainly hope that's not the case for Jimmie Johnson fans and Jimmie Johnson himself. I hope he finds that new spark. I hope he finds the spark the rest of this season. But certainly, this may be a lesson to him and his team it's better to play it safe, even though he did push it there at the end. It might be better to play it safe. If they are put in this position this time next year. So that's really all I have to say about this race. It was the inaugural race, which I really, before I went into watching this race and knowing I was going to do a review about it, I was thinking this is probably the most important race I get to cover so far, because it's not every day you get to see the first race. This is the first since I was born in '97, so I guess there was a lot of new mile and a half, so they started racing at inaugurally, like Las Vegas and tracks like that, like Kansas and Chicagoland. But in my recent memory, this is the first time I can say, yeah, I remember watching all the way through that first time race, the first time they raced at that, not at that track, but in this road course oval configuration. Which, now talking about the track a little bit, before I cut this video off, this track combination, although it looked kind of unsure at the beginning, man, it provides some really good racing. I was on the edge of my seat this whole race. That doesn't happen often, folks. I was watching this the whole time, and every lap had something else going on with it, because the track is so difficult. And I was thinking this in the middle of the race. The Charlotte Roval, in a sense, is kind of like what short tracks are to oval racing. What the Charlotte Roval has become after today to road racing is what short tracks are to oval racing, if that makes any sense. I know there's long straightaways still on this road course configuration, but the kind of they have to stay in second gear and a lot of those parts in the yoke, as you'll hear it mentioned as just that infield section of the course. Those spots right there, it feels like a short track. How it gives them plenty of chances to bump and bang, and of course the heartburn turn there in turn 1. And I don't know if that makes any sense. Take that with a grain of salt. That's just what I was thinking in the middle of the race. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Next week we'll be heading into Dover for the round of 12, and darn it, we're back to normal old oval racing. I was having a lot of fun with the road racing. Two of my favorite drivers have won. My two favorite drivers have won on road courses this year. I don't know what to say about that. I just figured that out. So next week we'll be at Dover, and they'll be starting the 3 races of the round of 12. Thank you for clicking on this video. I appreciate you spending your time with me for a little bit. Be sure to like this video if you liked what you saw, and go ahead and follow me all season long and into the off season by hitting that subscribe button below. Thank you so much again for watching this video, and until next time, this is William Crossland, and thanks for listening.